Hello, welcome to Family Talk Tuesday. I'm Pastor BJ Fouts, here with my wife Jessica, and tonight we hope to talk with you as husbands and wives, moms and dads, about strengthening your marriage. Jessica?
A little bit about our marriage. We've been married for 15 years. We have 4 kids and a dog. Uh, Made it through 6 moves in our lifetime. And yeah,
The dog's going to snore through most of our presentation probably tonight.
you might hear the kids every now and then, so it's just real life.
There's
We're
lots of
living right
noise and
now.
activity around the Fouts house.
Yes. Well, our hope tonight is to just be honest, be real about our marriage. We're not perfect. Our marriage is not perfect. We struggle, we fight, we love, we do all the things that most marriages do. And so, by no means do we have all the answers or do we know some gurus on marriage. We certainly are not. But we are just hopefully like you, just a normal couple, uh, committed to each other and working our way through this COVID-19 phase of life that we are all going through right now.
Social distancing works very well outside the home, but that requires us to be the opposite in our homes. Lots more time with the spouse, with the family, with each other. And sometimes that can be really disruptive because those routines and patterns that we've been in with our regular lives that we were accustomed to prior to COVID-19 all disrupted. And now we're spending a lot more time in close quarters than we have perhaps ever before.
Yes. Yeah.
And so tonight we're going to talk about some tips, tricks, some just sharing, not that we're experts, not that we're perfect, but some things that we have noticed that are important to keep in mind for husbands and wives, moms and dads in their family relationship.
Yes. One of the first things is commitment. Just going back to what brought you two together when you guys said your vows and you made that commitment to one another, that you would be with each other for the rest of your lives and clinging to that on those days that are rough, that are hard, that maybe you don't want to be together in the same house, or maybe there's not enough social distancing you feel like to put between you, but at the same time knowing that you have that commitment. And that commitment, not only remembering why you both came together in the first place to become husband and wife, but it also is what is kind of forms the rock of your family and of your marriage, and especially that family unit, excuse me, is that commitment. And so, anytime when you're going through a rough time, or even when you're going through a good time, it's always good to remember that you are committed to one another, and that gives each other a sense of security and safety within the relationship and within the marriage, that there is something stronger there, that holds you together. So,
I think one of the things I remember us learning early on in our first few years of marriage was getting the D word out of our vocabulary. That we were never going to talk about that as an option. That wasn't an option. It wasn't on the table because the commitment that we made to each other on our wedding day was a solid commitment. And we know that there are those very extreme cases where that might become necessary. It is not a part of our vocabulary.
yeah, it's not a word we try to throw around in the midst of a fight or at any time. Not that we're perfect and that we never do that, but we definitely try to make that effort not to throw around, throw around.
And that provides that safety and security you were talking
Right.
about. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then, so that leads us to our second item, and that I don't really have a good label for it, other than just to keep in mind the question of what are the other person's intentions. When we're in the middle of those disagreements, those conversations that are not going very well, and of course, all of us, we immediately assume the worst, that that person said something that was hurtful and they meant it. They were trying to tear me apart and tear me to pieces. And I know is one of the lessons that's been hard to learn, and that's just the realization that, wait a minute, that person probably is not a marriage terrorist. They're probably not out to destroy this relationship. And so whenever that conversation happened, whenever that disagreement happened, there was something that was said that I heard it one way, and it was probably not intended as negatively as I thought it was. And that kind of difficulty of taking a pause and kind of stepping back a little bit, and then, all right, where was that conversation going, and what was she trying to say, and why would she try to say that? What was her motivation behind that? We talk about sometimes taking a time out in a relationship, and that's a good time to do that. To take that time out and like, that was really hurtful. I'm going to take a time out and figure out what just happened and why. Because not a marriage terrorist, not a marriage terrorist, but we can appear that way in the middle of those conflict situations. And so then stepping back and asking the question, why did he or why did she say that? What was her intention in saying that? And it was probably different than what I first assumed it was. And acknowledging that my assumption was probably wrong. And that's tough to do.
It is tough to do. It takes some maturity. And it also goes for actions too, not just words. Maybe, I failing to come up with a good example, but
please don't come up with any examples. Example-free video tonight.
But sometimes, especially when you're tired and you're grumpy and you've come home from a long day at work, maybe something's not done that maybe you were hoping to have done.
What have I not done?
And so instead of seeing that as your spouse, intentionally trying to make your day harder, it's probably maybe there's something that's going on in their life and they weren't able to complete that task, or maybe they just honestly forgot and their intention was not to hurt you or not to make your day harder. It was just an oversight or something, something like that. It wasn't intended to hurt you in any way.
So rather than assuming that your partner is a marriage terrorist, just assume that...
It's a strong word, terrorist. I don't know if I like that.
It fits sometimes. Just assume that they meant well. They meant the best. They are, in fact, that person that you married so many years ago. And they probably weren't always that forgetful or ever intentionally trying to hurt you. If they were, then we should have had talks more about the pre-marriage stuff. But the realization that nobody's perfect. Everybody makes some mistakes.
Yeah. Another thing that we thought of was just honesty with one another. And, it all kind of goes together. If I am hurt, to be honest that, I was really looking forward to having that, let's say it was dinner. I was really looking forward to having dinner on the table when I came home. I thought that you had the opportunity to do that. Just being honest with your feelings, because we are not mind readers of each other. And sure, as you're married to each other, and you might know a certain look or a certain behavior, and you can kind of read a little bit about how they're feeling, but they might not even be feeling that about you. And so it's important that we're honest with each other and actually talk verbally about what we're feeling, and not just try to assume that that person will pick up on how we feel. And so being honest about our feelings, being honest about maybe we had a hard day at work, and maybe you can't tell us all the details. I know it's a lot of our marriage is, I don't always know the details about what's going on at his work. But if he tells me, I had a bad day, I can know, okay. And I can give him some grace at that time to know, okay, he's had a bad day. I'm not going to make it worse by having all these expectations placed on him for the day. So,
and building up some of that honesty includes admitting your own mistakes.
Yes.
And that builds that trust with your partner. And so because I can come home and say, I messed up, I was supposed to have had dinner tonight and I didn't get it done, or I was supposed to have paid that bill today and I didn't get that bill paid, or even worse things that, I really made a big mistake. I overspent on that hobby of mine, or even worse things, the fastest way to repair any damage that was done by those mistakes is with honesty. And this person who you're married to, they probably are going to be ready and willing to kind of forgive and work towards repairing whatever damage was done, but that can't happen without honesty.
Right.
So that honesty is the first step towards repairing anything that was damaged. And honesty is very important that way.
Yeah. Like I said, they all kind of build on each other. When we're honest with how we're feeling about someone's intentions, and then asking them what truly was their intent, it's about being honest. I was not intending to hurt you. Maybe I didn't even realize it was going to hurt you. But now that you've been honest with me, I know next time how to respond or react. And so without being honest, you might never really fully know what someone's intentions are unless you are honest that, yeah, that hurt me. I don't think that you wanted to hurt me. Here's how I took that. That's why it hurt. And now then the spouse has a better way to know how to present that thing to you, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything comes back to the commitment. I mean, that's the bedrock. That's what holds you together. Those two cords, and of course woven together with Christ. That's the bedrock of all the marriage.
Mm-hmm. Having that third component that ties us together, and that commitment that we made wasn't just to each other. It was a commitment we made to God, that we would be in this marriage for the long haul. And so having that commitment, that connection to God, having understanding of our intentions, and reevaluating that she's not the enemy, and then being honest about our own shortcomings and our own expectations, all that kind of those things work together to form the well-oiled machine of a marriage. But I like to say that's the well-oiled machine, but the oil lubricant of that marriage is always going to be laughter. And in the middle of even our most intense arguments, I can make her laugh, which is a gift from God, because I have to make her laugh a lot because I make a lot of mistakes, and she can make me laugh easily as well. And that's something that being willing to laugh with each other, and occasionally at yourself when you've made those mistakes. And I love the story of, can I tell the story about the hot dog?
Sure, why not?
So this was before we were married, but it's a story that just, we had a run one of those days, and we had gone out. We got a hot dog from a hot dog stand in Chicago, and we were up there in college. This is before we were married, and we were coming back to the dorm, and it was after hours, so she couldn't come to the floor. But so she stayed in the lounge, and I had to go get the ketchup because she has to have ketchup, a lot of ketchup. And in Chicago, if you know, Chicago
Yes.
hot dogs, they don't serve ketchup. But I knew, I had a bottle of ketchup in my dorm fridge because she has to have ketchup. And so, but it's been a long day, and I'm hungry, and I kind of like, I don't want to walk all the way up 3 flights of stairs just to get your ketchup. And I kind of very frustrated. I said, well, keep my hot dog warm, just sit on it or something. And I was kidding, completely kidding, about how to keep anyway, I walked upstairs, I came back down with the ketchup. And
now, just wait a minute. Now, I did not know he was kidding, because he was pretty angry at this point because he was so grumpy. So I didn't know, and I remember in my head going back and forth, like, is he being serious? No, surely not. Is he being serious? So that's just my take on what was going on in my head as you're tromping up the steps.
So I go back down the stairs, and I got the bottle of ketchup for her. Where's my hot dog? Sure enough, it was kept warm.
It was.
So, and that, we laugh about it. And we,
Yes.
I think we even laughed that night
Yes.
about that as we
He was very
enjoyed
graceful with me.
our Gene and Jude's hot dog.
Now, there was several layers of paper and whatnot over top of
Well, of
that,
course.
just to let you know.
Of course.
Like, it wasn't like
Yeah.
it was just,
Yeah, of course. But so, we tried to never bring up all of the things that we've argued about. We do enjoy bringing up those times where we can laugh with each other, and those times where we did something kind of foolish. I still get made fun of for the way I pronounced the town my vicar supervisor was in, even though I knew it, just in the moment mispronounced it. And every time I make a mistake pronouncing a word nowadays, or every time I try to correct anybody else in their pronunciation, Jessica will just look at me and say,
Arapahoe.
Yeah, Arapahoe, right? So, but laughing with each other and just even in the middle of those hectic, stressful times, finding something to laugh about. And I kind of call it it's the grease, it's the oil that keeps the machine working together well, because it helps to break down some of the tension. And so, laughing together. And I think some of the greatest opportunities for us to laugh together are when we are doing fun things together. So, our first challenge or our first I'm going to call it a challenge. The word challenge gets used way too much right now.
That's true.
Our first practical step for marriage enrichment
Is what BJ likes to call is date your mate. I'm sure, I don't know if you coined that phrase or someone else
I
did.
did not.
So, but he calls it date your mate. So I know right now with social distancing, there's no movie theaters that are open. You really can't go to a restaurant, sit down and eat together. But try to find some time where it's just the two of you, where the kids, maybe you've put the kids to bed, or you can send the kids upstairs like we are fortunate enough to do. And just take that time to maybe, even if it's just to debrief with each other over each other's days. I think we did that the other night where we just took a couple minutes to talk about our days, but then we could kind of get the alone time that we needed in it as well. But then find fun things to do. Maybe it's, trying a new game together. Like maybe you have that board game that you got a long time ago.
Don't play Monopoly.
That is not good for our marriage. Find a board game that hopefully you can laugh together through that. Or find, a movie that you've always wanted to watch together. I know for us, one of our favorite shows is Survivor. So early in our marriage, before, streaming services, we would watch that together. And that was kind of our thing.
The good old days when you had to watch a show when it was on.
Had to watch the commercials and everything, yeah. And so find ways to just be together, just the two of you, even when, you're in the midst of family togetherness. But make sure you also get some time just to spend with each other and take that time, if you can, to laugh and to enjoy each other's presence and just to be the good friends that you probably were when you got married.
So yes, marking on your calendar and marking that and being intentional. Don't just, we'll find some time to spend together, but go ahead right now and pick a day, mark it down, what we're going to do. And, what were some of your favorite dates when you were younger and plan one of those, or figure out how to play skee ball on your couch. I don't know. Figure out something.
Yeah.
That's a creative way right now. And with the technology age we have, you're watching us on the internet, you can Google how to play skee ball on your couch. It'll probably come up with something interesting. I haven't tried it. Who knows?
I will say we're talking to a couple recently, and I don't think they'll mind me saying this, but one thing they're doing is they're kind of having like this game night, board game, some kind of game night with friends from other places. So they're doing it as a couple. They'll be attending the game night together, but it's all through the internet. So they're connecting with other friends, but they're doing it as a couple and being together as a couple doing that.
Digital game night, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I couldn't remember exactly what it's called, but I thought that was a neat way to do a couple thing together. So
another practical step for marriage enrichment that we have for you this evening, and talking about honesty and just speaking the truth to each other, and that is take some time to speak the truth in love and intentionally. So encourage you to just sit down with your spouse and. A couple of ways of saying this. Hey, today the highlight of my marriage with you was, and letting them know, saying it, putting it out there. And you can even occasionally throw a low light. And today it really upset me, or it really hurt me when, and fill in the blanks. I always say it's nice to make like an Oreo cookie, right? The Oreo cookie, the best part's the cream in the middle, right? So put the nasty stuff in the middle, and then surround it with the cookie part. I only said that backwards, didn't I? It's all right. So rewind. Here we go. But
Sorry, I said 2 chords earlier instead of 3 chords. So
hey, nobody's perfect, right? Nobody's perfect. But if you got something that's tough to say, like, hey, today it upset me, or today I was hurt when, but make sure you surround that with 2 positives. Hey, you looked really nice today. And hey, I was really excited today with that note you left on the fridge for me. And or whatever else it is that's for you. And so just to be intentional and be honest. Today, our marriage was awesome because. And if you're having a negative feeling, go and throw it in there, but try to surround it with a couple of positives.
yeah, I think that's really important that when we're being honest with one another, we all have faults. We're both sinners come together in this,
Speak for yourself.
and so to make sure that you don't focus just on negatives because they can easily just as focus on the negatives of you too. And so when you're focused more on the positives and the positives are outweighing more of the negatives, then it's actually easier to talk about the negatives because your mindset is focused on the positive, but yet there's this issue you got to talk about. So it's important that you focus more on positive. So keep 2 to 1 is kind of the ratio you just put there.
2 cookies to 1 cream.
Yes,
Got it.
yeah. So very important. Let's see. As far or the third, I forget what you were calling them now. The
Practical steps towards marriage enrichment.
Third is to think twice before you react. So we were talking about intentions and how important it is to think more about what your spouse's intentions were when they maybe said something or when they did something. And so it's easy to react right away. When you're angry, your gut reaction is to react. And sometimes it's to say maybe not such a nice thing, but it's that desire to get out that emotion. But what I'm going to challenge you to do is to take a deep breath. Take a deep breath, and during that breath, think about, okay, what was the intention? Was the intention to harm me? Was the intention to hurt me? Was the intention to hurt our marriage? And usually, you know your spouse pretty well. You're going to realize it probably was not intended to hurt me personally. It was not intended to hurt us as a couple. It was something that was done in perhaps a good intention, or perhaps not even realizing how the hurt would be done. And so when you think twice before you react and take a deep breath and give yourself time to calm down and to be able to speak calmly, hopefully speaking the truth in love about the hurt you feel, and then being willing to see what's good in the other person. And maybe it's even a thank you for, I appreciate that you tried to do that for me. I appreciate that you were trying to help me out in that way. Perhaps it didn't turn out like you intended, but I appreciate that. So.
Yeah, there's a reason, for parents who went through like Lamaze classes, and they spend so much time focusing on the breathing techniques to get through those painful moments. And I mean, there's kind of a marriage argument Lamaze. In the middle of those conversations where things aren't going as well as they should, they're getting heated. Just the value of taking that deep breath and practicing a little breathing technique for a moment to reset your thinking. That can be very helpful.
Yeah.
And our final practical step for marriage enrichment. I want to encourage you tonight as you talk about the commitment, that day that you and your spouse were united together in holy matrimony in the company of some of your family and friends and the presence of God and these witnesses. Right now, while you're stuck at home and you're bored out of your mind, go dig out the photo album. Go dig out those wedding pictures. Now, you ones who are married more recently, you probably have them all digitally anyway. It's easy, just 3 clicks on the computer, right? But for the rest of us, we got to go dig out that album. And what a great time to show your kids, if you got kids, or even just sit down together on the couch when you're having some quiet time together and look back through those memories of that day. And one of the neat things Jessica and I got to do right kind of before coronavirus got to Nebraska, it was a thing, and it started across the United States. And because we were watching it really closely, mid-February, we went on a cruise together, and it was a marriage enrichment cruise for couples. And it was their 10th anniversary of doing this, and they had invited all the couples who were on this cruise to submit their wedding photos, and they had kind of a mosaic of all the pictures there. And of course, at first, I was kind of hokey. Sure, you send in our picture and everything. But looking at that picture from 15 years ago, remembering, hey, yeah, wow, my wife is always beautiful, but that day, wow. And then all of the friends who were there, and the love that was around that day, it helps remember the commitment that we made that day. And so one of the things that I'm going to encourage you to do is to go and get out those wedding photos and to prove that you did. All right, here's my request. I'd like to see you share those. And here, we're going to post this on the Facebook page. And you can scan that picture in, because if you don't have it digitally, you got to scan it first, right? Scan that picture in, and then go ahead and add it into the comments on this video. We'll just share our marriage pictures, and we'll share ours. We have it digitally now, I think.
I think so, yeah, since we had to send it in there.
We had to send it in digitally before.
Yeah.
And so just to share those together, and those are all available for us, so we can all then know the commitment that each of us have made, and we can be praying for you and for each other, and encouraging one another, and working together with the blessing of God to get through COVID-19 and quarantine. And, hopefully, something that one of our other video contributors said in one of our other series that we have right now, maybe we can develop good habits now that will last after COVID-19 is over. And I think the things we talked about tonight can be useful
Definitely.
years from now. So
yeah, so for the rest of our lives, we can do those things. So yeah.
So thank you for watching. I can't see the time. We don't know how long this has been. Hopefully
I think it says about 30 minutes.
Hopefully we've stuck to about 30 minutes. And we're going to be golden. Look forward to seeing some wedding pictures maybe show up in the comments of our video here.
Really, we just know if you watched all the way through then. But no, please do put them up,
That's
because
the
it is fun to see people's wedding photos. I always thought, I remember being a kid and finding mom and dad's wedding photo album and being like, who were these people? Because they look so different. But then, just as a child being, mesmerized by that they actually existed before I did. But then also just being thankful to see the commitment, that they made to each other and how they lived that out. So yeah, those wedding photos, even of your friends and everything else, you might get a chuckle from the hairstyles. You might get a chuckle from the dresses, especially if we put up any kind of bridesmaid dresses. You might get a chuckle from those. But please do share, because it's encouraging when you see other couples' marriage stories and marriages. So.
And I think our bonus tip for you, something that we're not very good at, but we try, and that is just to pray together. Yep. And so right now, I'd like you to pray with us, if you would, please. Lord God, our Heavenly Father, God, thank you for my spouse. Thank you for this partner you've given me in life. God, we pray for our marriage, and we pray for all the marriages of those who are listening to us here today. God, I just pray that you would give us peace that comes from you during this time of uncertainty. Pray that you would give us the commitment that you have led us to make to you and to each other, that you would just empower us to be faithful to you and to each other in that commitment. Help us to see the best in each other. Help us to love like you love us in every possible way. God, I thank you for the opportunity we have to grow now and always. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
God's blessings to you all.